or even threatened by death fatwas such as Turkey Hamad. There is no freedom of protest. Demonstrations are illegal. Punishment for demonstrating in the usual jail and flogging, but this is dependent on the mood of the local judge, since there is no penal code in Saudi Arabia. And see the United Nations Convention Report 2009. There is no freedom of worship. Arrests for religious practices that do not comply with the dominant Wahhabi sect also could lead to imprisonment. The Shia, who are considered apostate and heretics, are especially targeted. And the latest Human Rights Watch report has been about specifically the subject of the Shia. Of course, this also extends to Sunni Muslims, like from Mecca and Medina, who are not Wahhabis. And I cannot give, because of time, any examples here. Zainab, a young woman from Medina, wrote to me, "No matter how many skyscrapers are built in Riyadh, we are still excluded from practicing law. And we are forbidden to drive cars, and from leaving the country without the permission of our mihrim, and even giving birth without the presence of our mihrim or male guardian. And the Maqawha, given the right to humiliate us in public and question our Islamic faith. So what is the use of their skyscrapers? They are just artificial monuments in the sand." Fatima from the Ahsa, from Awamiya city, sent me this message. "They appointed a woman acting as a minister of education. We would rather drive a car so that we can take our children to school." Anyway, King Abdullah has increased the number of royal pardons, especially in cases that have been exposed to the international media, such as that of the girl of Qatif last year. But royal pardons, in a few cases, in lieu of real reform in the legal system, will not save the thousands of prisoners of conscience in the kingdom. According to Amnesty International, there are currently from 6,000 to 8,000 prisoners of conscience in Saudi Arabia without legal representation or just trial. They are subjected to torture, and I have many stories of this sleep deprivation here. See, the question is, what we ask is, why all the secrecy and why the point of all the restrictions when the world cannot be kept at bay? The borders of the kingdom cannot be sealed. Our gathering in this room today has been anticipated and will be debated in Saudi websites. Ladies and gentlemen, as we sit in this room, these walls do not separate us from the Saudi people who are demanding human rights, equality, and dignity. To conclude, when you read books of journalists, Western journalists and historians visiting the kingdom, you may feel hopeful for Saudi Arabia and its roots towards human rights. I truly wish that I could share those hopes. Maybe one day, when the plaintive emails and the passionate websites fall silent, I will be able to share in the confidence of some of these visitors to the kingdom who take back stories of happy prisons to their homes. Thank you.
Thank you very much for keeping on time, and I was watching the clock there, and I made sure that you did finish on time. Our final speaker is Elaine Hargrove. She's not going to get 10 minutes, she's going to get 6 to 7 minutes. And I don't know why I decided that, but anyway, you can extend to whatever up to. But she's a researcher at Women Without Borders, and she's going to talk about women in Saudi Arabia. Elaine.
you, and I will try to keep it to 6 minutes. As has been mentioned several times already this evening, Saudi Arabia is changing. And whether it is adopting Western ideals, and that is bad, or whether it's moving in the correct direction is clearly up for debate. But the reality of the situation is that the young Saudi generation are the people who are going to have to deal with this change, this almost inevitable change. And based on this premise, Women Without Borders conducted a 2-year study in Saudi Arabia on the hopes, dreams, and hurdles that the Saudi Arabian youth is facing. We interviewed 4,455 male and female undergraduate and graduate students at 4 leading universities in Saudi Arabia. And the results of this study show that at least where gender roles are concerned, the Saudi youth desires change and is confident that change will happen. 70% of the students we interviewed no longer want power with gender-based privilege, but rather with education. The students are ambitious, and they look forward to an engaging career and to raising smaller families. Family still is paramount, religion is treasured, and the tradition is respected. But the young Saudi citizens now define themselves as well-educated, techno-savvy, and cosmopolitan consumers, and they recognize that trade, tourism, and the transfer of knowledge shape international relations. Despite enduring stereotypes that women should stay in the home, Saudi Arabian women's subjective hopes and dreams will certainly alter the career and familial landscape in Saudi Arabia. Over 60% of both men and women see the changing gender roles as a personal opportunity. And interestingly, while 62% of the women believe that men's priority should still be providing for the family, only 36% of these women believe that women's main priority should be caring for the family. The dramatic move in women's education, which has occurred since the 1960s, will change the face of the Middle East. 78% of the female Saudi students and 83% of the male students consider a successful career to be part of their life plan. And while the majority of both men and women would prefer to work in government, 22% of the women would prefer a job in the private sector, presumably for the greater flexibility and freedom of action that the private sector offers them. It must be noted, though, that the high unemployment rate does present a real problem. Only slightly over 1/3 of the men and 21% of the women expect to find a job after graduation, which presents a significant risk factor in the country's inner stability. Both men and women feel confident that there will be significant changes in gender roles and women's rights within the next 5 years. And they believe that the media is positioned to play an important role in these changes and in promoting positive role models. And it's interesting to note that these role models do not derive only from Saudi Arabia or even from the Arab region as a whole. Oprah was frequently mentioned as a very positive role model throughout. And just a quick note about countering terrorism in Saudi Arabia. Dr. Jafar, who's actually the founder and chairperson of the organization, will be at King Saud University tomorrow presenting the findings of the study, and she will also be introducing SAVE, which is a Women Without Borders campaign. It's the first global women's counterterrorism platform. And this concept has gained great support both from government representatives and from civil society representatives. And so let's keep in mind that countering terrorism does not only have to happen on a militaristic level or come with a lot of financial backing. Women, and especially civil society, can play a key role in countering terrorism in a way that perhaps governments cannot. So those were the findings from this recent study. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I think all of you will agree that we've had 6 excellent speeches and contributions. I'm going to open this now for questions and very short contributions, because I don't want to have long speeches. Very short, and I'd rather if you keep to very short questions as well, and let the panelists then answer. And if you want to say who you are, and if your question is to the entire panel or any particular person. So, sir, I'll take you first, and then I'll take that later, and I'll take you then. Sir.
Well, in this room last month, Lord Ahmed made history.